You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Hey folks, welcome to a special bonus episode of The Projection Booth. This is the rest of the interview with Laila Nablusi. I split this off because it kind of relates a little bit more to a few previous episodes that we've done, such as Nothing Lasts Forever, as well as the Hunter S. Thompson extravaganza we did a few years ago, where we talked about Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, The Rum Diary, Where the Buffalo Roam, etc. Be sure to check out the rest of her interview over on our Blues Brothers episode. Enjoy. How did you meet Hunter Thompson?
I met him in Belushi's dressing room. John and Danny had gone on a road trip first, and they did an article for Rolling Stone of their road trip or whatever. And Judy and I outfitted this whole bluesmobile for them. This was it was before the blues, around this, I don't know, I can't tell anymore what happened. It all seemed to happen in 1 year, but I keep thinking it happened over several years. But anyway, they met him there, and I had no idea. I mean, I don't know if we read Fear and Loathing. I wasn't that aware of him, or, So I thought, they said, they met this Southern writer, and they went to Colorado, and I just pictured Truman Capote or something. I don't know what they were talking about. And then one night at the show, John said, could you bring me between dress and air, before I got down there? Judy was out of town or something. He said, bring me this jacket. And I ran down there, and then I walked into the dressing room, and there was this guy lying on his couch. It was a tiny room, and I had no idea who it was. But I thought, oh, whoops, I don't know. I'm going to love this person or hate them. And it could have been anybody. Could have been the dealer, for all I know. I mean, in those days, anybody could be there, And then John liked to do this thing that he liked to introduce me to people, like, for fun. And he went, Laila Nablusi, Hunter Thompson, Laila Nablusi. So it was like that. And the rest was history.
How many years did you end up working with Hunter?
Well, I lived with him. We were engaged. I lived with him for about 5 years. But I worked with him for 20-something, almost 30 years. I mean, from the minute I met him till he died, we were, we did the film and other things, even after we weren't formally together like that. So
I was curious how you got involved with Nothing Lasts Forever.
Well, that was Schiller's movie. I had worked with Tom, and John had died, and so we were all in New York. I was living with Hunter at the time, but I went back to New York, and I was kind of there for a while, staying with Judy, and it was just a nightmare. That whole time period was really fraught, and Schiller was talking about making this movie, and so he kind of pulled me back in, and so for something to do while I was kind of wandering around. I mean, we just ended up, it actually happened. And so I went through the whole process of the script and development and casting and doing everything I would do with Schiller. And then the film started. And then halfway through, I feel bad about it. I don't know. It was like I should have stayed for the whole thing. But at the time, because of John dying and living with Hunter, and Hunter was kind of like, are you coming home? And I was pretty fraught, and so I left. I went home. I left but I mean, I felt like I set it all up and everything. So, and then I kind of came back a little bit during the editing and when it came out, or tried to come out, didn't come out. So then later I came back to New York after Hunter and I split up a little bit, and 85, 86, Lorne was the first year Lorne came back to the show. And I was back in New York. I was staying with Judy, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I wandered up to Broadway Video, and Lorne was there, and we started talking, and he said, well, I'm thinking about doing the show. And I went, really? And we started talking about it, and then we went to dinner one night and talked about it. I don't know why he was talking to me, but anyway. And I was like, well, I guess you could do it. We were just sort of talking about it. And then he offered me to be a producer on the show. And I was like, okay. So I did that, 85, 86. No, I had done Prizzi's Honor. Was that before? Yeah, maybe Prizzi's Honor was before. I can't remember now.
Yeah, I think Prizzi's Honor came out in 85. And then I am pretty sure you get credits on SNL right around that same time, 85 or 86.
Yeah, Prizzi's Honor was first. Then I went back to SNL. So Prizzi's Honor was because I had just come back to New York. I was literally sleeping on Judy's couch at 9th Street. Well, she had a pretty nice setup there, but everything was just hard, because I left Hunter and John had died, and there was just a lot going on. And Judy, it was about a year after John had died. No, more, a little more. I knew Jack and Angelica from Jack Nicholson and Angelica. He's from Aspen, and I was very good friends with Angelica. She was kind of my best friend from Colorado from when I lived in Aspen with Hunter, because Jack had a house there, and she would come out there, and we got to know each other, and we became really good friends. And then Bodie Boatwright, I knew her because she was on Nothing Lasts Forever, and she knew John Foreman very well. And so John Foreman said, I'm doing this movie with Jack and Angelica, Prizzi's Honor. We're coming to New York. I need somebody to help me find stuff and I guess be sort of like an assistant or something. And she was like, oh, you should meet Laila. And then so we met and we laughed like he was my mentor as a producer for sure. I mean, John Foreman was the best, class act. So that's how it happened. We ran around one day looking at, I think, apartments for John Huston or something, but we ended up laughing hysterically. And then I learned a lot from him. He was like major. And we went through the whole movie, which was one of those movies that was kind of a love fest. It was one of those great experiences, that you have once in a blue moon, and everybody gets bonded, and, went through it with Jack and Angelica, and that was fun. And we had all these mafioso types in New York that were feeding us. We all gained like 20 pounds, They were like cooking in Jack's trailer all day. Like, it was like, Tommy Barada and all these guys from Mary Lou's. Remember Mary Lou's? But Mary Lou's was on 9th Street, down the street from Judy's townhouse. And so since I knew those guys, I knew those guys from Aspen, Tommy Barada and a few of those other guys. And he had this restaurant, Mary Lou's. Let me tell you something. Mary Lou's kept me alive before Prizzi's Honor. I felt like I was doing pre-production. I was doing all the pre-production work for about a few months before we actually did it, because I had no money when I had left Hunter and he wouldn't give me any. And so I would go to Mary Lou's and Tommy Barada would give me dinner for free. So then they all came on the movie. So I kind of had already done a lot of pre-production. So it was great for Foreman because I knew everybody, and then he taught me a lot. He was great. He called me the little general.
He always strikes me as somebody that just has personality for days.
Oh, John Huston was fantastic. Yeah, he was great. He was fun. He liked to gossip in the morning. He'd say to me, honey, come over here. Yeah, he'd go, what's going on? What's going on? I go, well, you don't know what Kathleen Turner did last night. We'd have a good old goss fest about the crew and people. Yeah, he was great. I loved him. He was so cool. I'm very grateful. I've been really lucky, and also I think willing to work hard, because it's not, obviously, unless you're willing to work. And I was always good with people. I'm a good communicator, and I didn't know that was a talent, but it sort of evolved into that. I was at ease in life, when a lot of performers, are at ease on the stage, but not in life, but I could keep it all going. So I was really lucky because I got to do a lot of fun stuff. But we met in those days. I don't know, for some reason it's so different now. It's just, or maybe I was just so young that I was a worshiper of creativity. So I just did it because I loved doing it. I didn't care. I didn't make any money. I never was good at like, oh, give me a percentage of this or that. You know what I mean? It's just like, hey, if I've got enough to get through and go to the next thing.
Can you tell me how the Fear and Loathing movie came about and how you got involved with that? What was your relationship like with Terry Gilliam?
It took me 2 or 3 years to get the rights figured out, because Hunter had sold them in perpetuity in 1972 or something. And I had sort of wrangled them back, or at least with options and stuff like that. And then it took me like 10 years to get that movie made. And basically the short form of that is, it wasn't the right time in the 80s. It was the Just Say No era. Nobody was going to make a movie. It wasn't really until Gus Van Sant did Drugstore Cowboy, actually, that kind of opened it up a bit. The great thing was it gave me a kind of great calling card to talk to everybody. And I did. I talked to so many directors and actors and people, and mostly directors. I kept looking for the right director. And I had approached Terry Gilliam, and he had turned me down. He said he was too busy at the time. As years marched on, I had originally thought, oh, it would be great if it was starring, John and Danny were supposed to do it with Martin Scorsese. Belushi and Aykroyd were supposed to do Fear and Loathing with Martin Scorsese in 1977 or 8 or whatever it was. And the deal fell apart. Then I had this idea of like, what about Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando? then that didn't happen. And then we went through I talked to John Malkovich, and I went through so many different people, and looking for the right director, and it just never, it just didn't happen. And meanwhile, sort of messing around with the script, and then I would put it down and do something else because it would just sort of, there was nothing happening, and I would be like, oh, okay. And then I thought, I have to go out to LA and live there to get this movie done. And I just sort of made it. I left New York and went to LA, and that was my goal. And I was like, I'm not going to leave till this is done. And then Johnny Depp, Hunter had met Johnny, and he asked me to go meet with Johnny, and I went and met with Johnny Depp. And I thought, well, he's not as tall as Hunter. And it was kind of like, if you can imagine looking at him like, really? I don't know, really? And then, but of course, when I met him, his charm is like so fantastic. He can, you want to give him anything he wants. I realized that he had the same eyes as Hunter, these sort of brown, like people didn't realize Hunter had this soft core, and they were both from Kentucky. And I thought, oh, well, he'll get that part of it. He'll be able to portray something else, but not just the cartoon, what you think. And I had already seen Benicio at a party somewhere or something. And I thought, oh, that guy would, I didn't even know who he was. I was like, who's that guy, And then it went through another, it was a very difficult movie to get made. And it went through a few fits and starts. And we went back to Terry Gilliam. And then finally he said yes. And suddenly we were making a movie. And then suddenly it was all happening very fast. Terry is like, he's a fantastic visualist, and I wanted a visualist. I knew that it needed that. I mean, we may differ in our perceptions of comedy, in some ways, but I think he did a great job, and I think we had a few fights about stuff, but he told a mutual friend of ours that I was always right. He never told me that, but he's not easy. He likes to he creates a lot of chaos, but that's okay. There was a lot of chaos anyway, and it was Fear and Loathing, and I knew that was going to whip us around anyway. And he didn't tell me this till later, that he had this thing that he wanted to see if he could make a movie in a year from start to finish and edit it. And of course, he did it on a much lower budget than he was used to, and that's what he did. Which I was a little bit of. I mean, I wish that we'd waited a little bit on some of the editing, but it's okay. We got into Cannes and we did all that. I saw it recently. I hadn't seen it for a long time. And in 20 years, I can't believe it. It was 20 years ago. We did a 20-year anniversary party at USC, and we showed the film, and I did an archive exhibition. I laughed through the whole thing, and I thought, this is fucking funny. And, time wears away some of your resentments, but the thing is, like, you look at it and some things don't hold up, some things don't last, or they're not funny anymore, or, they're dated or something. There's something about that movie that it just doesn't really date. It's just, I don't know. It's cool. I think I'm so grateful for that, because when it came out, it was a dismal failure, so.
Do I remember right? Was Alex Cox involved with that somehow?
He was hired against my will by Rhino. They had a problem at one point where they were going to run out of their option that I'd given them, and they brought Alex Cox to the table against my wishes. And then I didn't have Johnny yet, so I was trying to work with him, and he was just unbearable. And I think he thought I was working against him, but I wasn't. I mean, he literally hung himself. I didn't tell anybody, how bad it was. And I figured they're going to find out. And they did. And when I got Johnny to sign on, it changed the power structure, which Alex didn't like, but it was sort of like, hey, dude, you're doing a Johnny Depp movie, and he still was a pain in the ass. He's very self-destructive, I think, He's not very nice to women either. So there you go. No, he decided he didn't like that I was his enemy when I was like, the person he should have, really leaned on, or at least allowed to help him. He didn't like that. And meanwhile, he wrote a script that, like, we didn't like, and there was problems with it, and I knew Hunter wasn't going to like certain things about it. And we kept telling him, if he just changed this, and that's all he had to do, and he probably could have kept the movie, and he refused to do it. And then we shut down. It was like over Christmas, I think, and we had no director. We had sort of a time schedule, but we really didn't have anything we had Johnny coming on board. So we had to find a director. And meanwhile, Benicio and I rewrote the script. We gave that script, the Gonzo Papers, we called it, to Terry. There was a whole fight with that whole thing about who wrote the script. But anyway, I don't care. But, Benicio and I wrote the script. Then we gave it to Terry. Then Terry changed it, did something with the ending, and that was fine with me. And it was fine. On we go. That is a bonding movie as well. One of those once in a lifetime. In fact, that's what I told Johnny when he was trying to decide if he was going to do it. I said, okay, by the end of the day of wrangling on the phone, I was like, you know what? Okay, here's the thing. I'm not going to tell you you're going to make money or that it's going to be a hit movie or it's going to do well. I have no idea. I said, but I'll tell you one thing. If you don't do it, you'll regret it for the rest of your life.
It definitely seems like that movie changed his life. I mean, to see the Rum Diaries and then even Rango. I mean, it feels so much like Rango was an homage to Hunter.
That was a bromance made in heaven, Johnny and Hunter. I mean, they're two Kentucky boys. And for someone like Johnny to give it over, because there's no one else in the room. When Hunter was there, it didn't matter what movie star you were. Hunter was really the star because he just had this incredible personality and charisma. And he was smarter than anyone in the room and more fun than anyone in the room. So, they would come to him. They wanted to hang out with him, So Johnny was his road manager for a while. They did a couple of gigs, funny stuff. And, I'm sure he got a kick out of all that. So, yeah, they had a lot of fun together. And, and it's hard not to love either one of them. They're both lovable. But Johnny was the one, Johnny was the one who, at the end of the day, when I knew what Hunter wanted for his memorial and the monument, and I thought, fuck, how am I going to get people to pay for this? I thought I was going to have to go around and beg and borrow from everybody, And the day, Johnny called me, of course, that night that Hunter died, but he said, come over tomorrow. And I went the next day and he said, okay, tell me, what is this thing? I said, it's on the video it's on that piece of where he talks about it when he went to Vegas at one point a long time ago. And then anyway, we watched it where Hunter describes what he wanted and all this stuff. And then Johnny says, and I was sobbing hysterically, and Johnny says, okay, well, we're going to do it. I went, what? He goes, we're going to do it. And I said, well, it's going to cost a pretty penny. I mean, he goes, I know. And I said, well, it's a good thing Pirates has been good to you. Okay. And he never wavered. God bless him. I mean, he is really a true blue person, and I'll never forget that, how he just took that on because he could, and he did it beautifully. I mean, perfectly gorgeous, like no expense spared. It was beautiful. It was, and we're going to put the monument back up at some point. So that'll be fun. It's 150 feet high. God bless him. And then he bought, the archives to house them and archive them and keep them and stored properly when none of us could afford to do that. He is the hero of the story of that part of it. When we do the Hunter S. Thompson Institute, then hopefully we can house everything and make it more available to people. And we're going to try to figure all that out at some point soon, hopefully. But COVID just got in our way. So I don't know. I think you could never make that movie now. We were independent and they had no idea what we were doing. And when Terry came on, Universal came in and doubled the budget for us, but it was a negative pickup. We were already running. So they were like, okay, whatever, it's Terry Gilliam, Johnny's in it. But Johnny wasn't as big as he is now. He hadn't done Pirates or any of that stuff, And so just on the strength of a little bit of it, they were like, okay, but we were already, they had no say. They just were going to see it after it was done. And they kind of freaked out, but it was and unfortunately, I don't think they marketed it right. And they brought it out against Godzilla. It was a whole big mess in a way, but the good news is it's earned it's a cult classic when at the time when it came out, everyone was like kind of mean to us, but that's okay.
What are you working on these days?
Well, I'm working on the live show of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, a rock and roll circus. Yeah, that we would have opened this fall if we didn't have, COVID nightmare. So as soon as we can have a live audience happily and safely, we're ready to go. I've developed it. It's taken me a long time. It was something that Hunter and I talked about a long time ago that we wanted to do for Vegas, but well, maybe we'll start it in LA and we'll see where it ends up, because I have bigger plans for the Hunter S. Thompson Institute and all kinds of things, but we have to get the show up and running first. So, we'll do that. And and I've written a script that I might do someday. And, I'm always working on, I did a record for Standing Rock when that was happening at Capitol Records with Don Was. And I love the music stuff. It's funny. I should have probably had a career in the music business, I think, when looking back on it now. But, because I think the music has been the thread and the inspiration all along. Or inspiration is not a good word. As Hunter would say, fuel, the fuel. I need the music. So been very lucky to stay. And when I'm doing this Fear and Loathing live show, we're going to have a live band, and, it's going to be like a rock and roll circus. There's going to be a lot of music, and that part excites me the most.
Wash your whiskey in the water, or some sugar in your tea. What's all these crazy questions they're asking me? This is the craziest party that could ever be. Don't turn on the lights, cause I don't wanna see. Mama told me not to come. Mama told me not to come. She said that ain't the way to have fun, son. Some air into this room. I think I'm almost choking from all this bad perfume. And that cigarette you're smoking would scare me half to death. Open up the window, someone let me catch my breath. Mama told me not to come. She said that ain't the way to have fun. That ain't the way to have fun. The radio is pumping, someone's banging at the door. I'm looking at my girlfriend, she's just passed out on the floor. I've seen so many things I ain't ever seen before. Don't know what it is, but I don't wanna see no more. Mama told me